Welcome to 10.5 Factoring x squared plus bx plus c. This is your first lesson on how to factor some polynomials, some quadratic polynomials, quadratic equations. This is some very fun stuff. However, it can be a little confusing at first, and so hopefully this video will help kind of introduce to you the basics of how to factor. Earlier in chapter 10, we learned how to FOIL. We would take an expression that looks something like x plus 7 times x plus 2. We did the FOIL trick, we multiplied it together, and we would get a quadratic equation that looked like this, x squared plus 9x plus 14. Today, the lesson of factoring is really the opposite operation. We start with a quadratic equation, or the quadratic expression, and we try to do some things in our head and on paper to try to figure out what the two factors are that multiply together to give it to you. In this example, we're trying to figure out how to take this expression and make it look like x plus 7 times x plus 2. Alright, so first is some terminology. You notice up here today's lesson is called x squared plus bx plus c. The next few lessons are going to be similar, but we're going to change some things that go in front of the x squared, and we might change the signs of bx and we may change the signs of c. Some of that will happen today, some of that's coming up. Alright, so back to this equation here. I just want to identify the b that you see in this equation is the 9 in this equation, and the c that you see here is the 14 in this equation. So b has a value of 9, c has a value of 14. Know those terms, b and c, because they're going to be clues as to how to factor these future equations. Alright, so let me talk to you about how you go from here to here. Let's do that by solving the second example on this screen. I'm going to give you an example of how this can work. This is how you're going to factor a quadratic equation. We'll take x squared plus 4x plus 3. Okay, we identify the value of b, 4. We identify the value of c, which is 3. Alright, this is important. The very first thing that you need to do when working with factoring quadratic equations like this is to look at the value of c, which is 3, and ask yourself what two numbers multiply together to give you 3. Well, in this situation, there's only one example that I can come up with, which is the numbers 1 and 3. 1 times 3 equals 3. But just on a side note, we don't have to worry about fractions and decimals. We're only working with integers, whole value numbers. Okay, so 1 times 3 is 3. I have a pair of numbers, 1 and 3. Now the second question you ask is, do those same two numbers add up together to give you the value of b, which is 4? Well, here I check it. 1 plus 3 equals 4. It checks. It works. So that means my two numbers that I need to help solve this problem are the numbers 1 and 3. So when I write out my answer, it's going to look something like this. X plus 1, the first value, times x plus 3, the second number. If I FOILed this, if I multiplied these two factors together, I would get x squared plus 4x plus 3. You can even pause this right now and check that if you would like. Alright, let's look at this third example, okay? And I wrote out just a little bit differently, but the same idea to try to help us understand how to fill in or find the answer. So the value of the equation is x squared plus 8x plus 7. The value of b is 8. The value of c is 7. I told you that we were going to start by looking at the value of c, which is 7. What two numbers multiply together to give you 7? How about 1 times 7? Okay, that would work. I can replace that question mark with a 1. I can replace that question mark with a... Oh, I should double check that. 1 times 7. Yes, 1 times 7 multiplies and gives me 7. I was being distracted. Alright, now I plug those same numbers in here. Do they add up together to give me 8? They do. Since it tests positive for both of these equations and both these little tests, 1 and 7 then are my solutions, and I'll drop them into this equation. So plus 1 and x plus 7, and there is my final answer for factoring these two quadratic equations. You're taking it from the quadratic equation written in that way to the factored form. Good luck, and check my other videos for some other variations of these same type of problems a little bit later on.